majority of the people that I run into on a daily basis don't love what they do, then I have to ask, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Because I don't care about your apartment or your car or whatnot. Like, if you walk in and you are glowing because you're so happy and excited with what you're doing, that's what really matters.
Hey, fitness fans, welcome back to the Future of Fitness podcast and interview series. This is your host, Eric Malzone, and this is episode number 76. So I get to talk to Joe Bauer. So you can find him at allaroundjoe.com. He is a podcaster, blogger, fitness enthusiast, and he's also a digital nomad, which is one of my favorite topics. So at the point of this recording, he is driving around in his converted four-wheel drive Sprinter van, which is his living station, working station, and also his workout station. He talks about how he's got, probably close to 1,000 pounds, if not more, of equipment that he lugs around with him in the Sprinter van so he can get his workout so he doesn't go crazy. A large part of this interview is about being a digital nomad, running a podcast and monetizing a podcast. It's a great opportunity, even though podcasting is nothing new. I think the future of podcasting is extremely bright, and any kind of voice-oriented content is going to be really important because people love to do two things at once, right? They like to listen while they work out, while they drive, while they cook dinner. So podcasting is a great way, and he's monetized it successfully, and he's living the dream. So without further ado, let's get into it. I really, really enjoyed this podcast. And before I do, we do have another sister podcast called The Fitness Blitz. So if you are a fitness professional and you want to get highlighted on a podcast, we have a great show. It's called the Fitness Blitz Radio. It's 10 to 15 minutes. I would gladly talk to you about being a guest. We're pretty loose on the guidelines. The whole goal is just to build a network and highlight people who don't normally get highlighted, even those who do. So we have huge names on that show as well as people who are just getting found. So if you want to find out more, just hit me up at Eric Malzone at fitnessprofessionalonline.com. Without further ado, this is episode number 76 with Joe Bauer. Mr. Joe Bauer, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, Eric. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. I, obviously we'll talk about you a little bit in the intro and all of that, but, I love talking to people who have similar life interests, like yourself. And so I'm not going to spoil it. Why don't you just get into it? Tell people what your life looks like right now, and then we'll get into the backstory of it next.
Well, at this exact moment right now, I'm actually in a house, but normally where I am is living in my van. So my girlfriend and I bought a 2017 four-wheel drive Sprinter van. We cut the top open. We put a pop top in it. We threw 300 pounds of bumper weights in the box in the back with a couple of barbells and a rogue rack that's even tall enough for my 6'1" frame to hold on to. And we're driving around all the national parks, man. It's awesome.
That is cool. So you committed to a full year, right? Where you're just going to check out all the parks. Is that right?
We're telling people a full year, but to be honest with you, it's kind of like however long it takes, people at least the people that we talk to, our family and friends, like to know that, oh yeah, they're gone for about a year. But if I'm being completely honest with you, the conversation between my girlfriend and I is, well, we've got a goal to get to all the national parks and see some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And that might take a year. It might take longer,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because we know when my wife and I picked up and left Santa Barbara, which was our community for, a decade, and, so many friends and everybody was like, well, you're coming back, right? And it was just easier to say yeah, we're just going to go on this. We're going to get this whole mountain thing out of our systems, and we'll probably be back. But I don't know if we're going to go back. I think we've gone through, because we lived in 6 different places in 12 months, and we leave next week to go to another place. And anyway, so it's cool, man. So we're going to dive deep into that lifestyle in here in a little bit. Let's give the listeners a little backstory, Joe. Cool. How you got there? How did fitness become such a big part of your life, and how have you gotten to this point?
Yeah. How far back do you want to go?
Let's start at the very beginning, the birth of Joe.
All right. So Yeah. Born in Kirkland, Washington. And I actually had an interesting upbringing where my mother decided that she didn't like the public school system. So she had a teaching background and she decided that she would homeschool myself, my younger brother, and my younger sister. And it was interesting in that she actually gave us the option. She said, "Hey, you can go to school whenever you want to. Um, and I'm going to teach you and get you tutors for anything that we need to learn. And if we're going to go on field trips or do history lessons, we're going to drive there and, we're going to see the ice caves, or we're going to go to this national monument or whatever. And then we're going to do some sort of report on it." So looking back now, I think that really ruined me for like having a regular job.
Yeah.
And thank you, mom. Thank you, mom. So then that led into basically playing sports a lot because we had a lot of time. We'd get our schoolwork done and then we'd play sports a lot. And that led into a college baseball career, in junior college at least. And I picked up on the weightlifting in college baseball and just absolutely loved it. Could not get enough of weightlifting. I was doing an extra session during the day, even though it wasn't, we didn't have to for the baseball team.
Yeah.
And I learned as much as I could. So at the time it was like, yeah, you're reading bodybuilding magazines. That was pretty much about all they had. And I would just dig into that and read as much about it as I could. And after the baseball career, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I loved working out. So I transferred to San Diego State University and they had a great kinesiology program there, which perfect, right? Didn't know what I want to do. I love working out and they have kinesiology. Even though I didn't know what kinesiology meant at the time, I was like, all right, cool. They teach you how to get better at working out. So I went through that program and it turned out there were some fantastic professors there. And that led me into personal training. And I started off with personal training at 24 Hour Fitness, which is an interesting experience. Teaches you how to sell, essentially, which is a skill that I'm really happy about having now, and getting out of your comfort zone in selling. So I did that for a little while before going out on my own and having my own personal training business in San Diego. Then that led me to eventually moving back to Seattle because I have all of my family network, and that's really important to me in Seattle. So I moved back to Seattle, did some more personal training there, and then lo and behold, followed a girl out to New York City, where I continued to personal train for a few years and actually got really involved in the corporate personal training, like go to people's homes or offices or gyms, wherever they are in New York City. So I was that guy that you pay a lot of money to. I'd come to you and I'd, motivate you to work out, essentially, which was cool, except I always felt like I had a larger calling to reach more people, because have you ever been a personal trainer, Eric?
Yeah. I've done all types of training, from, personal training, online training, small group, big group. Yeah.
So you can imagine in this situation, I was like, I couldn't book 1 hour after another because I was going maybe from downtown or midtown to uptown to whatever town. And it would grind on you. And I would be having, 15 clients or something like that, because that's all I could have, making great money. But like I said, I had this calling to reach out to more people. So I started blogging at that point. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. But started the blog, All Around Joe, which is actually fitting that it's still the same blog that I'm pounding on the keys for now.
Yeah.
But
what year was that, Joe? When did you start your blog, roughly?
Oh my gosh, it must have been around 2008.
Okay. Great time to start
like
a blog.
That. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep. It was cool. And I remember it picked up traction at times, like I didn't even know why. I'd write a post on something and Google would pick it up and I'm like, wow, I got a whole bunch of traffic. I don't know what to do with it, but I got a whole bunch of traffic.
Yeah.
So that was cool. That was fun. But it took a few years still of like pounding on the blog, trying to figure out how business worked, because I was not a business person. I was a kinesiology major, didn't understand business at all. And that eventually really burned out by New York City, although I learned a lot of lessons. Anybody who's lived in that area can probably attest to, like, either you learn lessons and you keep up with what other people are doing. Basically, you survive, or you get chewed up and spit out. And I was able to figure out how to take my naturally introverted self into this, extroverted world, survive for a little while, and add that to my tool belt. Then when I moved back to Seattle after getting tired of the city, I had this kind of like extra superpower in my pocket where I could basically turn it on, or blitz, or whatever we want to call it, for the period of time that I need to. I could jump up on stage and, do a presentation. Whereas that was something that would have just terrified me beforehand. And that led into online coaching. I did online coaching for people all over the world for a while, got into affiliate marketing, basically promoting other people's products, and did pretty well with that. So that's kind of like, without getting into, going through the fitness part of it, of bodybuilding to ultra running to Ironman to competitive CrossFit. That's the story in a nutshell.
Oh, that's awesome, man. And just, I know Joe, just through, I've been on your podcast. We've had opportunities to talk along the road, but now knowing the backstory on you, it all starts to kind of make sense. Like the homeschooling thing is really interesting to me. I've always felt, and maybe, I'm sure you probably have an opinion on this, but school systems kind of set us up to be a cog, right?
Yep.
And just enter right into the system, and then work your 40 years, get your pensions, which don't really exist anymore, and retire, right?
Yep.
But I can see, why you would naturally be resistant to that and just not fall into that space. I mean, I did, I went to, 18 years of Catholic school, which is even, woof, man. Yeah. I was like, a hard time. Right. And, but, afterwards it took me, 10 years to kind of realize, like, this mold doesn't really fit me that well. I'm curious on your insights. Like, how do you, what was it like being homeschooled versus, like, I'm presuming you had a lot of friends who were not homeschooled. How are those interactions? Did they look at you funny? Were they jealous? What was kind of, how'd that go?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I feel like there's this thought that people have of homeschoolers, and there's the stereotypical homeschoolers, which are kind of like the kids that love reading, and nothing wrong with that. I I think it's great. Looking back now, I was like, I wish I was that type of homeschooler that, like, burned through business books when I was 10 years old. But basically my parents put us into sports a lot so that we had some sort of social interaction with other kids.
Yeah.
And I do feel like there is that stereotypical homeschooler, though, that we hung out with a lot, because we'd still get together with other kids, and my mom would teach classes in our basement, or if we had tutors at other schools, like private schools and things like that, which it was cool. But there's a sense of, like, you're an outsider for sure. With the exception of the sports. Unfortunately, I happen to excel at sports, so I think that helped me. But although I was still very introverted, and I was the kid that, growing up, if we were eating out at a restaurant and the waiter came over, I was like hiding under the table because I didn't want to talk to the waiter. So if that gives you any insight to, like, how I came up, the upbringing of Joe. Yeah. But then at the same time, I was able to flip it on and be a successful pitcher in baseball, which is like, all the spotlight is on you. And I think that kind of led into what I've become now. And I don't know how it would have gone otherwise, like if I didn't have those sporting roles, I think I probably would have been a completely different person. So for people that are thinking of going down that route, if your child is not an extrovert or, isn't a heavy introvert, it would be interesting to see, or I feel like putting them into sports and things like that is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, you and I have talked to, we both have talked to Di Manuel, who, he's also living his life on the road like you and I do. And, he's got, I believe, a 12 and a 15-year-old daughter. And, he pulled them out of school and now they're in Bali somewhere. So, I think, it's great to hear, because I think a lot of people, refrain from maybe doing something different with their life, whether it be, going to a different country. I hear all the time for us, because we don't have kids, I hear this all the time, like people, oh, well, do what you can do now before you guys have kids, right? I'm like, well, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
what if we have kids? Like, how does that change? We can
Right.
homeschool them, or we can figure out a way to, just because that's the way you did it doesn't mean
Right.
that everyone else has to do it that way. And this stuff's so deeply ingrained, right?
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
system. So yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how many people I'll piss off with this, but if I have the ability, I will absolutely homeschool my children. I think the school system, at least where I'm from, is fucked.
Yeah.
Having known what I know and gone through what I've gone through, and maybe that will end up backfiring on me, and I'm fine with making mistakes that way. But I would love to homeschool the kids when we have them, and take them down the path of teaching them how to be entrepreneurs if they want to be, teaching them how to go learn things that are outside of what the teachers are supposed to teach people. It's like, man, I'm sitting here thinking, like, how important is it for me to know how to eat correctly these days, and not be obese and feel good? But I was taught US history that was probably not real.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm just like, that's so fucking true and honest. And
Yeah.
I've just never put it in that perspective, but you're 100% right. My sister homeschooled a few of her kids, and a couple other kids she has in the normal school system. But here's the thing, like, okay, is how outdated is school systems now? And this isn't where I want to go with the whole topic of
Right.
the podcast, but like, how outdated is it really? I mean, we have as much information as we want at the tip of our fingers. Do we need to learn history? Which, you're right, is probably taught to us, and it's not true. Whoever writes history is the one who won. So
Right.
is it really what happened anyway?
Sure.
Language, like, even like we had to take handwriting. Like, is handwriting necessary anymore? It's cool to do, but is it necessary? No, it's not.
Right.
What people need to be learning nowadays, and kids need to be learning, and not to mention the bloated, university system, how much that costs with student debt and all of that. Figure setting kids up to get fucked. And then, like critical thinking, right? Okay, here's a problem. Go solve it. Come back to me at the end of the day, right?
Right.
That's teaching. That's learning.
And then use as many friends as you can. Like, leverage the other people in the room. It's like, how are we taught to take tests by ourselves? It's like, man, if I have a big problem, I'm like, man, wonder if Eric knows the answer to this. I want to give you a call and be like, hey, dude, have you run into this problem before? I'm never going to be like, how can I solve that myself?
Yeah. How to seek mentorship too, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you seek a mentor? I mean, if I could, I got some support through school, through athletics, but my dad paid most of the way, through college. Now, in hindsight, knowing what I know now, I would have probably either gone to city, right? Or maybe skipped it all together, and then taken that money, lived off it for a short while, and worked for free for an amazing mentor. Like, hey, I'll work for you for free for 2 years. Just teach me everything, right? Like, how cool would that have been?
So cool.
Right? So anyway, wow. So, I look for, in this podcast, Joe, I always look for actionable items that our listeners, fitness professionals, can use. And I think one thing you have utilized extremely well to afford you the life that you have now is affiliate marketing. And I think that's a confusing thing. I think it's even, some people, when they hear it, they think dirty word, right?
Yeah.
Like MLM or anything like that. So talk about us, like, if you can just explain the story of how you developed, obviously through your blog, and you have a podcast, and you develop these audiences, and then how are you leveraging affiliate marketing? Like, what is affiliate marketing, and how is it bringing you money? Yeah,
sure. And I was fortunate way back when I got started that I had a mentor that told me about affiliate marketing. He was like, when you first get started, you don't know what to do. You can post these links on your site, and if somebody clicks through them, then you can get paid. So that's essentially one form of affiliate marketing, is that I will post a link on my website, on my blog, and somebody, if they decide to click on that link and then actually make a purchase of that product, then I will get paid for it.
Awesome.
And that's one of the ways. Another way that I really like to use is coming up with a coupon code for the product that we're talking about. So let's say that the company gives me a 10% off coupon code to share with my readers or audience, and then I will get 10% of that purchase price as well. So it's kind of like a 50-50 split.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I got into it just because I didn't know any other way to monetize my network at the time. And it was one of those things where I don't know why, but when I first saw an affiliate marketing check into my PayPal account, it was like the best feeling I've ever had. And still, even to this day, if I get, even $100 or something small of affiliate marketing, I don't know why, but it's just like, wow, that money like came from something that I did. And you can sometimes track it back, but a lot of times you don't know exactly where it came from. Like, was it from a podcast I did 2 years ago? Sometimes it is.
Right.
And to me, I think of it like mini rental houses. So a lot of people understand how rental houses work. You buy a piece of property, you put a renter in it, and you collect mailbox money. If you're doing it correctly, you collect mailbox money
right.
Every month, the net from whatever those people are paying you after you pay for the mortgage and the taxes, insurance, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, wow, if I post a blog post up that's a review of some product that I love, because my idea of affiliate marketing or how I do things is I only post products that I love. I don't want to bash anybody. So if there's some product that I get and I start reviewing, I don't like it, I just will not post about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I could do that right now, and then 2 years from now, it could still be paying me money.
Yeah.
Which is super cool to me. And I'm not sure, did I answer all the questions that you had?
Yeah, no, it's excellent. That's an excellent overview. And, we, in the mastermind groups that we have, we're affiliate market's always coming up, because it's all online fitness professionals. So we're all putting out content. Everyone's trying to figure out ways to monetize. And, I think the traditional thing is everyone thinks, okay, I'll have a podcast. All these people will listen, and then I'll get a sponsor.
Right.
Right. There's so many ways to monetize this stuff. I've never had a sponsor, nor have I actually sold anything on affiliate marketing. I tried my first 10 or 20. I didn't sell anything. So,
oh, really?
Anyway, yeah, it wasn't, I don't know. I don't think it was that, I didn't do it well. But we've had indirectly tens of thousands of dollars of revenue come from our podcast because,
Sure.
People hear it, you start conversations, you learn, and all of that. So there's a lot of different ways, but I think this is something that would really motivate people. And are you doing it mostly through blogs? Are you doing it through your podcast? Or where do you think most of it comes from? I know you don't know specifically.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is through the podcast. And what I'll do is I'll find a product that I really, really like, and then I've created a great relationship with the company, meaning that, like I said, the 50-50 split is something that I think works the best. And it depends on how much margin the company has in order to give up. But it could be that I give 25% of a discount to somebody and I get 25% in my pocket.
Yeah.
That's obviously awesome. If I can make $100 per sale on some product or something like that, which is not uncommon, it's super cool because then you can see that add up really quickly. I utilize the podcast mostly, and it will be something along the lines of this podcast is brought to you by one of my partners because I'm partnering with that. It's not that they're necessarily sponsoring the podcast, but it's one of my partners. And the partners have allowed me to give you guys a discount code for X product. And then I'll tell a story about how the product has changed my life. And I try as best as I can to copy the things that like guys like Tim Ferriss do, and how do they tell stories about the affiliate products that they're promoting or the sponsorships that they're promoting. And the truth is that, like you mentioned, you could have sponsors on your podcast. And I haven't been looked extensively into that, but it seems like the rates that I would get for sponsorship are far lower than the amount that I make from selling these affiliate products. So
yeah.
If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to sponsor your podcast for, $500 an episode or something like that, I'm not going to turn those guys down. But it's not unheard of that I could get 5 affiliate sales from an episode, which could be $100 each. So you got to, weigh that out. And, one thing to keep in mind, though, if you guys are thinking about going down the affiliate marketing route, is that you always have to be careful about keeping your eye on the market and finding new products to promote or try out that you love so that you can promote them honestly, because you're you're getting controlled by that company. So I've had several times where I'm making a couple $1,000s a month on one product, and then they'll decide to change or get rid of their affiliate program. And that's never fun.
Yeah. 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 Interesting. So, I know I have 2 podcasts, right? And every once in a while I'll ask someone if they want to be on my show, and I'll get the question, how many downloads do you have? And I think, I look at downloads as, cause you're a CrossFit guy, vanity metrics, right? They're important. Just like back in the day in CrossFit in the first, 2007 and 2012, all people want to know was, how many members do you have?
Yeah.
How big is your gym?
Yep.
That's it. That's all anyone cared about. And whether those numbers meant anything, it didn't matter, because you could say, oh, I got 250 members and I have a 5,000 square foot gym. So what you got, right?
Right.
And I know, because I did it. That was me.
Yep.
I was such a jerk. And so when you are, if you're giving advice to podcasters, is there like a certain, how much emphasis do you put on numbers and downloads, and how much emphasis do you put on, hitting the target audience, and how do you know, like, how do you get that feedback? How do you get, I guess I get in a layman's or a non-layman's term is KPIs, right? Like, how are the key performance indicators done for your podcast? How do you measure it?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I actually have another podcast that I was doing as well. That's I do have a couple different podcasts like you, and I got the privilege of talking to this guy whose name is Mike McAllowitz. And those of you that haven't read the book Profit First, if you own a small business, I would recommend it. Like, drop everything and read it right now, because it changed my business. It changed me being, stressed about taxes and all that stuff. It like sets it up for you. So anyway, he just has this really interesting perspective, and he does really, really great at sharing his content and whatnot. But the KPIs, what really matters and what he talks about is the profit. So what I'm looking at the end of the day is like, how many checks are in my mailbox, and what does that number look like?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I don't care. Like, I do look every single time I open up my blog, it pops up the number of downloads that I have. And I do have goals like, all right, I'm looking for a steady growth on that. And I've had this growth, or this goal for a while, to have 10,000 podcast downloads per month. And I'm on my way to getting there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if I get a $2,000 check from an affiliate, that's the measurement that I'm caring about. If my lifestyle is to make, or if my goal is to make $5,000 a month through my podcast, and one affiliate's paying $2,000, and I fill in the extra $3,000 with a bunch of other affiliates or product sales or whatever it may be, that's all I care about, man. As far as the KPI, that is all I care about. For somebody that is starting a podcast, I always give the advice of like, man, your first 20, 30, 40, 50 podcasts are actually going to be for you, not for the audience, because you're going to, unless you have some broadcasting background or something like that, which, cool if you do. Oh man, you're going to be so bad. You don't know what you're doing necessarily. You don't know if your audience is going to resonate with one thing over another thing. And I'll go, I don't even like listening to my first 50. I'm like, oh, it will pop up in my iTunes sometimes. Like, it will just play if I have it on random. I'm like, don't do it. So that's kind of the advice I give, is like, be ready to grind for, 20, 30, 50 episodes, and then ask people what they think, and see if you can find your real voice and have fun,
Yeah, man. It's so true. I interviewed a few episodes ago, which will be aired by the time this one is. It's Mike Bledsoe. from Barbell Shrugged, and we talked about, and I asked him because he's, he got in early on the podcast scene, right? He got in
Yeah.
early, like he's like the Joe Rogan of fitness podcasting. He just got into it
Yeah.
his audience, right?
Yep.
And he's unstoppable now because it's just big. I asked him like, so, if you're, starting where I'm at now, which was, only less than a year ago, he's like, dude, just bury your head and do 100 episodes and just make sure you're having fun. And that was it. He's like, just make sure you're having fun because, and I took that to heart, now, if people are listening, I'm actually have a consultation with a young man to get him started on his podcast now is, take what you've learned. I listen to my first 20, 30, maybe even 40. And I'm like, like my first couple, I just had my iPhone's earplugs in. I had no microphone. I was just using, Zoom and just get started. I think if that's the biggest thing. So, yeah, man, great insight. So let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about your life on the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
You set yourself up. Now, actually, I'm going to kind of rephrase this a couple questions because it's not easy, right? Everything you've done, building your blog, building your online businesses. I know you're also dabbling, so I think it's real estate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's not easy, right? People look at when people like to paint this nice picture, especially when you're on a podcast or, any type of content that, hey, everything's great. Took me 90 days to build my $1 million business, right? What's the road been like from the sake of like the ups and downs or the circles, not even,
Yeah.
people are like, oh, it's up and down. No, it's actually more of like a circle parabola. Like, it's just, everything's kind of everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. So what's the journey been like for you to get to the point where now you have enough freedom of lifestyle that you can live in a van? And then we'll talk about
Yeah. You're right. It's been a head down grind, but a really exciting, fun one, assuming that my head is in the right place, and as there's ups and downs and you're excited and then things seem like they're going your way. And sometimes it feels like the world's coming crashing down on you.
Yeah.
And my journey was, as I was saying, that I lived in New York City. And at that point, I really realized that I was unemployable to the point where I was just not happy if I was working anything that resembled something that took my time away from me in a way that I didn't control. So I wanted to be able to get up and make my own schedule and be like, all right, I want to record a podcast to be creative today. And I want to work out for 3 hours today, 4 hours, maybe. I don't know, I want to have the ability to drive, across the country or do whatever and share as much of my message that I possibly can. So when I moved back to Seattle, I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't want to be a personal trainer. I knew that my blog was doing some things. I didn't know why or how. But fortunately, I've already mentioned my parents are awesome. And I made a deal with them. I was like, hey, I can't work the 9 to 5. It's not in me. But I'm going to put even more effort into trying to make this online fitness business work. And they got behind me and they had a spare room and I slept on that spare room, terrible bed for probably, I think it was like 3 years, something like that, where I was just grinding as much as I could. And it wasn't that maybe after a year or so that I needed to, but it's like, you're at a point where I have a great relationship with my parents and it was fun to actually live with them. It's weird to think, I'm 33 years old and I'm living with my parents. And a lot of people probably look at that and like, oh man, why would you want to do that? I highly recommend it. If, I'd much rather go down that road and be building an online business. And at the time I was training for Ironmans as well. So it was like, I've decreased the amount of income that I need as much as possible. I am spending as much time as I possibly can writing at that point, because at that point I didn't really understand the podcasting. I might have had a couple of episodes, but it was not sophisticated. It was kind of like, oh, maybe I'll use my call recorder, like you said, with my iPhone headphones in, record something, maybe even when I'm out running as I'm recording. I don't even know. And so I was writing a whole bunch because that's where I'd seen my traction with Google was SEO writing. And then training, like I was doing 2-a-days, get up and do some sort of Ironman training and do at least 4 days a week of CrossFit. So I was pounding at home. And like I said, it took about 3 years of real grinding and deciding that I wanted to, move away from that particular lifestyle. Because like I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that we have this perception that like, yeah, you go and move in with your parents and it's a bad thing. Not necessarily. I mean, look at other countries. Their kids live with their parents till like 40 years old or longer. Yeah. And it totally helps out if I have a situation right now, when we move back out of the van at some point, if somebody, that I know well says, hey, I want to get a business off the ground, I need a place to sleep, I'm going to be like, hell yeah, come sleep in my spare bedroom. And if you need any advice, let me know. Because I get it. If you're trying to change the world and do something that's going to fit how you feel like you should be living, then yeah, let me give you that helping hand.
Ah, man, it's so good. And it's so true. Like in my personal experience, I sold my gym last June, sold it successfully, put some money away, but we don't touch it. It's like, it's just nice to know that it's there. But we live off one income. We live off my wife's income. I have a meager paycheck that I take every month. It's kind of like the base level that my business partner and I decide we need to take. Everything gets reinvested. But we've moved. One of the reasons we decided to hit the road is like, I can't do this in California. I can't do it. I can't do it in Santa Barbara, California. But if we go to Montana, which happened to be a win-win anyway, because it was amazing. We can cut our living costs by a third. And, we can rent 900 square foot homes, for $1,200 and versus the $4,000 we were spending in Santa Barbara. And it's that ego thing. I have no problem doing that. I have no problem downsizing. I'm going to live with my parents August, September, this month, because we're like, okay, let's save a little money because I want to buy my van. And, so it's like, I'm 41. I don't give a shit what people think about that, because I know in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I can look back and be like, that was the best move I've made, because at least number one, I tried, right?
Yeah.
I tried. And most likely I'll succeed because I won't stop. Right.
Right.
Which I know is a big thing for you, is perseverance, right? Just keep going. So yeah, I think if people are listening to this, they're like, well, geez, I'm kind of stuck in this. And you're not stuck. It's just choices, right? We've talked about this. You and I personally have talked about this. It's just choices. You just got to make that first step.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that people they tend to bury themselves, like you were saying, with the choices that they make, and they feel like they want to keep up with all those people that are around them. And that, might mean paying $2,000 a month for rent and driving a super nice car and, eating out at restaurants and whatnot. And it's like, you made those choices. And because of that, you have to give up 8, 9, 10 hours a day to this particular thing that hopefully you love. And if you do, then more power to you. But if you don't, which seems like majority of the people that I run into on a daily basis don't love what they do, then I have to ask, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Because I don't care about your apartment or your car or whatnot. Like, if you walk in and you are glowing because you're so happy and excited with what you're doing, that's what really matters.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a tough pill to swallow for some people. In some ways I have admiration, people who have, don't see the things the way they have 3-4 kids, right? And they just eat it. They just eat it every day. They show up to their 9 to 5, they grind it out, but they're doing it for their family. I have a ton of respect for that. I really do. So I'm not saying I know you're not either. It's not like, hey, you can change your name. Some people really, it's like, fuck, well, I need $150,000 a year all the time. Otherwise my family starves. So I get that. But there's still, if you really look hard, there's still hard choices that you can make. Maybe you work on the weekends while you build your business. There's always ways out, but if you really want it bad enough, you get creative with it. You can really do it. Yeah, man. I mean, you're a living testament to it. So let's talk about the new life, right? Let's talk about van life. Give us the good, the bad, and the ugly, man. What is it like? People are wondering what it's like to live out of a van. Well, how's it go?
Yeah. So the van that we have is a 19-foot Sprinter van that has a pop top on it. So if you envision being inside of the van, what that looks like is 6'1" me is not able to stand up all the way when the pop top is down. When the pop top is up, though, it's like having, 4 extra feet of headroom and windows all around you that are up above, shining light in. It's a glorious thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have, an indoor bathroom, an outdoor bathroom. We have, a second bed, actually, because the pop top has a bed that drops down. And in the back, there's another bed, that the bench seat that folds out. So, refrigerator, probably about a quarter of or a third of the size of an average refrigerator.
Mm-hmm.
And then a sink with running water, hot, cold, all that fun stuff, and a stovetop. So being in the van, I was trying to think about what it makes me feel like. And I think it was like when you're a kid and you first realize that your bedroom is your room, and you can like close the door and you can like play inside of there. And I used to remember I had a tent on my bed when I was growing up, and I thought that was like the coolest thing, because I could like zip up this bed tent thing, and it was like my space.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it feels like. And it is actually more space than what I had imagined it would feel like. So that's great. I don't feel like I feel clean. I know a lot of people think, oh, you're going to go live in a van, it's going to be dirty all the time. And I know that, having done a lot of backpacking and camping, I tend to feel dirty when I'm doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But it hasn't felt like that at all. We keep it clean, and we have the showers and things like that. So showering every day and all that keeps everything feeling clean. And then we work fairly regular hours. My girlfriend has the 9 to 5 that she can do from the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And we plan our trip based off of where there's internet connection, which sometimes is accurate and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But we do that, and we get the work done, and we play. So it's been really fun to travel around and see things and live minimal. That has been the best part about it. It's like everything that we have goes with us everywhere. So it's like, where's my toothbrush, or where's my computer, or where's my shirt?
Mm-hmm.
If you're parked at the grocery store, it's in the back, it's right there. All of that stuff is, where's my protein supplement, whatever, it's all right there. So I found that when like in the last weekend, when we were at home, hanging out with the family here, it's been weird because I don't have everything. I'll be like out doing something, I'm like, oh shoot, I don't have that thing with me. It's not right in the back of the car. So that's been fantastic. I love it. I'm so excited for seeing more and more, and spending more time in areas. The hardest part, so we're talking about the ugly, has been finding a routine or a schedule. I'm a very routine person. Like if you look at my calendar, it's like, all right, I'm going to get up and I'm going to, drink water and meditate and write for a little while. And then I've got a podcast I'm going to write, and then I'm going to record the podcast. And then I've got another podcast interview I'm going to do. And then I'm going to work out for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to go have dinner. It's like, might be a little bit crazy, but it's, that's how I like to live. I like to make sure that I get things done. And if you have to drive, a couple hours, that kind of throws it off. And I found that I need to get my workout in early in the day, just to make sure that I get it done, because I'm the type of person that has more energy than the average person, I think. And if I don't burn that energy off, I tend to be somebody that maybe other people don't want to be around as much. I just, maybe that's why I can go out and run 50-mile ultra marathons and do Ironmans. It's just, I got this extra energy I need to burn off. Yeah. So I have to get that done in the morning, so that I don't, drive through the day, work, and then find that it's 9 p.m. and I don't want to work out at 9 p.m. Mm-hmm. And then also the work schedule too. So like that can be challenging, in that like my girlfriend, she needs to work, 8 to 4, 9 to 5. I don't necessarily need to work that schedule. It's more flexible for me. If I have a podcast interview like with you, then I'll know that I have to find a spot. And I think the last time we talked, I was sitting outside of a Starbucks, and I don't even remember where it was, like by Pinnacles National Park or something like that.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So you just find, Starbucks and some place is going to have connection, and you're good to go. But then we hit the road again after that. And then I would log back on at night again and get the rest of the work that I needed to get done. So that's been the hardest part of it. And I'm planning on squashing that hard part by spending at least a week in each destination that we're going to from here. and I'm sure that, we'll screw that up and it won't necessarily work the way that I'm planning to have it. But my vision is that we find a place to go park and stay there for at least 3 days or 4 days or a week, and then get into the rhythm of, all right, I'm going to get up and get some work done, and then, do a little workout in the afternoon, and then do some more work done, do another workout later or whatever, go for a trail run. Just to have some sort of structure in an unstructured life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And, all the time people will say, oh, you work from home or you work from the road. And they're like, well, yeah, I could never do that. I would just watch TV all day. I'm like, well, that's why you don't. And,
Right.
because I need that structure. And like, most of the times it's funny when you start working on your own. I think if you're a disciplined person, you actually book yourself up so much more than you would if you worked in a traditional setting,
Yeah.
Because, there's like traditional setting, there's lunchtime, right? There's coffee breaks. There's people at the water cooler. You don't have any of those distractions. So, left to our own devices, we're either working out or working. And, I tend to default more towards just work. Like I told you before this, we're in a sprint phase of our business. So it's like, just, I'm mentally exhausted, but yeah, it's interesting, man. And, everyone does it differently. You have your own way of doing the mobile van life. We decided after a year of doing this that we want to squat for 3 months each plot, get to know it, get some solid interconnection, do all those things, and then use that as launching points to go out to different areas. And then there's a lot of different ways. There's ways you can just straight up be in a van, drive every weekend, stop in a new spot. So I hope this podcast inspires some people to live, an unorthodox life. That would make me happy. And if people are listening and this does, hit us up. Let Joe and Eric know that we did some inspiring today. That would be really cool.
Yeah. Or if you need an extra kick in the butt, hit us up and we'll push you that extra little bit.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, Joe, where do people find you, man? Where do you send them?
Pretty much all around Joe, all over the internet is where you can find me. allaroundjoe.com for the blog and the podcast. Instagram is something that I post on frequently, and I'm trying to post more and more on there, even now with the new Instagram TV, trying to even put some podcast-ish episodes up there where people can see my talking head or whatever. So all around Joe at Instagram, all around Joe on Facebook. And like I said, I love to hear from people. So if anybody wants any advice or just wants to say what's up, let me know.
Awesome, man. Joe, thanks so much for sharing your story today. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
All right, man. I know I'll talk to you soon. So no goodbyes.
Yep.
Hey, fitness fans, don't leave yet. It's your host, Eric Malzone, and I have a quick favor to ask. Actually, 3 favors. So, number 1, if you're a fan of our show, I ask you to do something that takes under 3 minutes. Go to iTunes, please, and subscribe to our show. Please, please, please. It means so much to us. It's so important. And then give us a favorable review. We would really, really appreciate it. And I can't tell you how much it means and helps us out. So, it only takes 2 minutes of your day, and it means a lot to us. So please do that. Number 2, go to our YouTube channel or Fitness Marketing Alliance, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel there. Number 3, if you like this episode or any of the episodes that we've released, share it on social. That's huge. That's a big deal for us. And we put a lot of work into these episodes, trying to give you great actionable content for the fitness industry. So that would mean a lot. And that's it. So we have some big plans coming up for this show. I'll be talking about that in the next couple episodes, but thank you so much for listening. It means so much. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I love to hear from everybody. Eric, ERIC at fitnessmarketingalliance.com.